Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now let's get back to our main character. The quiet hum of the early morning office echoed through the marble lobby, the kind of polished silence only billion-dollar companies ever had. Under the soft glow of recessed lights, a lone janitor pushed her mop across the glossy floor, her movements steady, careful, almost invisible to the world around her. Her name was Lily Hart, 26 years old, hair pulled into a simple bun, uniform worn at the sleeves, hands chapped from bleach water and long shifts. At this hour, she was usually alone, until the elevator chimed. She froze. The doors slid open to reveal him. Adrian Blackwell, CEO of Blackwell Industries. 32, sharp suit, sharper stare, the kind of man whose presence made the air shift. He wasn't supposed to be here this early. He wasn't supposed to see her. Lily instantly stepped aside, gripping the mop handle tighter as he strode across the lobby with long, impatient footsteps. But then, he stopped, turned, looked at her fully for the first time. "You're Lily, right?" His voice carried authority, the kind people didn't question. She blinked. "Yes, sir." Adrian studied her for a long beat, as if weighing something heavy in his mind. Then he exhaled, jaw tightening with a decision already made. "I need a fiancée," he said flatly. Lily almost dropped the mop. I'm sorry, what?" "A temporary one," he clarified, eyes flicking toward the top floors where executives would soon gather. "For a deal that closes in 2 weeks. It's complicated." Her pulse hammered. Was this a joke? It had to be. But Adrian Blackwell did not look like a man who joked. He lifted a sleek folder in his hand. "You help me, and I'll make sure you never have to work a night shift again. Full financial security." Lily felt her throat go dry. She could barely pay rent. Her mother's medical bills were drowning her. Her younger brother's tuition was overdue. But still, why? "Me?" she whispered. "There are hundreds of women who'd say yes." For the first time, his expression softened, just a flicker. "Because you don't want anything from me." The automatic doors whispered open as a gust of cold morning air swept inside, carrying the distant sounds of traffic and a city already waking up. Lily stood rooted to the floor, heart racing, the weight of her entire life pressing against her chest. "Think about it," he said, stepping away. But not for long. The elevator dinged again. More employees arriving. More witnesses to a conversation that should never have happened. Adrian adjusted his cufflinks, glanced back once, and murmured, "Meet me in my office at 8 if your answer is yes." Then he disappeared into the elevator, doors closing like the end of a chapter Lily never meant to start. She stared at her reflection in the polished marble, worn shoes, tired eyes, mop water collecting at her feet. A janitor. A pretend fiancé. A deal that could change everything or ruin her completely. Her hands trembled as she tightened her grip on the mop. 2 weeks. A fake engagement. And a CEO who looked at her like she was the last person in the world he expected to need. She whispered to herself, barely audible, "What on earth just happened?" But deep down, beneath the panic and disbelief, something else stirred. Fear, hope, and a spark of a story she never imagined she'd be part of. The next morning, Lily found herself standing outside Blackwell Industries, a towering glass building that seemed to touch the sky. Her hands were clammy, her heart pounding in her chest. She never thought she'd be here, not in a million years. She could still hear Adrian's words echoing in her mind, the calm, assured tone as he offered her a lifeline, a deal that could change everything. She was just a janitor, after all. What did she have to lose? But now, standing in front of the building, she felt a sense of dread settle in her stomach. Was she really about to walk into the lion's den? She exhaled sharply, clutching her bag tightly as she stepped into the elevator. The ride up was painfully silent, the soft hum of the machinery only making her more aware of her racing thoughts. When the elevator doors finally opened, she was greeted by a sleek, modern lobby. Everything about the place screamed wealth, success, power. She barely belonged here, but that was exactly why she was needed, right? To play the part of the fiancée, to pretend. The receptionist, a sharply dressed woman with perfectly styled hair, looked up as Lily entered. "May I help you?" she asked, her voice all business. I'm here to meet Mr. Blackwell," Lily said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Right this way." The receptionist replied with a polite smile, leading her through a hallway lined with artwork and expensive-looking furniture. Lily felt out of place, like a fish out of water. But she had no choice. She had to go through with this. The receptionist stopped in front of a large, mahogany door and knocked lightly. "Mr. Blackwell, Miss Hart is here," she said, and before Lily could process the words, the door swung open. Adrian Blackwell stood in the doorway, his sharp blue eyes piercing through her. He was dressed in a perfectly tailored suit, his hair combed back with precision, and there was an air of authority around him that made Lily's pulse quicken. "Lily," he said, his voice smooth, almost too smooth. "Come in." Lily hesitated for a moment, then stepped inside. The office was just as impressive as the rest of the building, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a breathtaking view of the city. Adrian motioned to a chair in front of his desk. "Please sit." Lily sat down slowly, her eyes darting around the room as she tried to steady her nerves. "I hope you had a good night," Adrian said, his tone casual, but there was something unreadable in his gaze. "I trust you've given some thought to our arrangement." Lily nodded, unsure of what to say. "Yes," she said quietly, her throat dry. I'm still not sure about all of this. I mean, it's a big step, and I don't want to mess anything up." Adrian leaned back in his chair, studying her with an intensity that made her feel exposed. "You don't have to worry about that. Just follow the rules, and everything will be fine. We're in this for business, Lily. Nothing more." His words were meant to reassure her, but instead, they made her feel even more uneasy. "Right," she said, her voice small. "And what happens next?" Adrian stood up and walked over to a cabinet, retrieving a folder and placing it on the desk in front of her. "We'll start by attending a gala tonight. It's a high-profile event with some of the city's most influential people. I need to present you as my fiancée, and we'll play the part. Smile, be charming, and act like you belong. Do that, and you'll be well on your way to a comfortable life." Lily stared at the folder in front of her, her hands trembling slightly. "I'm not sure I can pull it off," she admitted, her voice shaky. "I'm just a janitor. I don't know how to be glamorous." Adrian's eyes softened for a brief moment, but he quickly masked it with his usual cool demeanor. "That's why I'm here to guide you, Lily. I'll help you through all of this. You just have to trust me." Trust him. The words felt heavy, almost impossible to swallow. How could she trust a man who was offering her an arranged marriage in exchange for money? But what other choice did she have? Her family needed her, and this was the only way to give them the future they deserved. "Okay," she said quietly. "I'll do it." Adrian smiled, but it was a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Good. I'll have my assistant make arrangements for you to get ready for the gala. You'll be a perfect fit for this role." Lily nodded, still unsure, but determined to go through with it. She had made her decision. She just hoped she wasn't making a mistake. As she left the office, the weight of the world felt like it was pressing down on her shoulders. But there was no turning back now. She had a role to play, and tonight, she would step into a world she never thought she'd be a part of. Ivy Grant, Adrian's assistant, found Lily in the hallway just as she stepped out of the office, her calm voice a stark contrast to the storm inside Lily's chest. "Miss Hart, come with me please," Ivy said, heels clicking in crisp rhythm as she walked. Lily followed, clutching her worn bag, feeling every inch the outsider as they moved through the pristine glass corridors. Ivy led her into a private styling suite, a room so bright and luxurious Lily had to blink twice. Racks of gowns shimmered under soft lighting, and an entire table of makeup brushes and perfumes stood neatly arranged. "Mr. Blackwell requested that you be prepared for tonight's event," Ivy said, her tone polite but cool. "You will be styled professionally. Please leave everything to the team." Lily swallowed hard as a group of stylists approached her, their eyes scanning her like she was a project on a deadline. Her heart thudded in her chest. She had never been in a place like this, never been treated like she mattered. Hours passed in a blur. They washed her hair, curled it with expert precision, brushed golden tones across her eyelids, and found a deep emerald gown that made her eyes seem brighter than she had ever seen them. When she finally looked into the mirror, she barely recognized herself. The woman staring back looked confident, graceful, someone who belonged in the high society world she was about to step into. But the truth was, Lily still felt like the janitor sweeping floors at dawn, invisible to everyone except the messes she cleaned. Ivy returned and gave a brief nod of approval. Mr. Blackwell is waiting downstairs. Lily's stomach tightened instantly. She stepped into the elevator, the gown brushing lightly against her legs, and inhaled a steadying breath as the doors slid open to reveal Adrian standing near the entrance. He looked up from his phone and froze. For the first time since she met him, his expression shifted. A flicker of surprise. Admiration. Something she could not name. "You clean up well," he said, trying too hard to sound casual. Lily's cheeks warmed as she glanced down. The stylist did everything. I just stood there. Adrian's lips twitched, almost a smile. "It is still you wearing it." Before she could respond, a sleek black car pulled up. The chauffeur stepped out to open the door, and Adrian extended his hand to guide her inside. She hesitated, then placed her hand in his. It felt steady, warm, grounding. The drive to the gala took them through the glittering evening cityscape. Tall buildings glowed like constellations, and Lily tried to steady her breathing as they approached a grand hotel illuminated with golden lights. A long carpet stretched out front, crowded with guests in gowns and tailored suits. Paparazzi lights flashed like lightning. Lily's heart thumped painfully. "I do not belong here," she whispered, panic creeping into her voice. Adrian looked at her, his eyes. "Steady. You do tonight. Remember the rules. Stay close to me. Smile. And if anyone asks how we met, follow my lead." She nodded, even though every muscle in her body felt tense. The car door opened. The noise hit her instantly, camera shutters clicking, people calling Adrian's name, the buzz of wealth and ego. Adrian placed his hand gently on her lower back, guiding her forward. "Ready?" She wished she could say yes. But all she could manage was a small breath as they stepped into the lights. The crowd reacted instantly. Whispers buzzed like static. "Who is she? Is that the new fiancé? He never brings anyone." Lily felt heat crawl up her neck. Adrian leaned down, whispering just loud enough for her to hear. "Ignore them. Just look at me." She did. And for a moment, it grounded her. Inside the ballroom, crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead, and violins filled the air with soft music. Servers glided between guests carrying trays of champagne. It was a world Lily had only seen in movies. Adrian introduced her to influential partners, investors, and board members. She smiled, nodded, repeated the lines he subtly cued her to say. Everything seemed to be going smoothly until a woman with cold eyes and a diamond necklace approached them. "Adrian," she purred, her gaze sliding to Lily with a hint of disdain. "You brought company." Adrian's jaw tightened. "This is Lily, my fiancée." The woman's eyebrows lifted. "Your fiancé? How unexpected." She stepped closer, her voice cool as ice. "Tell me, Lily, what is it that you do?" Lily froze. Adrian had not prepared her for this question. Her mind raced. She could lie, or she could tell the truth that could ruin everything. She chose honesty. "I am a janitor," Lily said softly but clearly. A hush fell over the table. Eyes widened. Someone let out a quiet scoff. Adrian stiffened beside her. The woman blinked, thrown off. Lily held her breath, waiting for the world to collapse. But instead, something strange happened. A nearby older gentleman smiled warmly. "A hardworking profession. We need more people who understand where real value comes from." Several guests nodded politely, shifting the tension away. Adrian exhaled subtly in relief. When they moved to the next group, he leaned in and whispered, "You did well." But Lily could not shake the feeling that her honesty had just set something powerful into motion, something neither of them could control. Ivy noticed Lily's quiet confidence after the gala. She had done well, handled the questions with grace, and her honesty had deflected any negative attention that could have ruined the night. As they sat in the back of the car on the way home, the hum of the city and the flash of streetlights outside seemed to mirror the turbulence inside Lily's mind. Her heart still raced with the events of the night. "You were incredible tonight," Adrian said, breaking the silence. His voice was warm, appreciative, but still businesslike. Lily glanced at him, her hands folded tightly in her lap. "Thank you," she replied, her voice softer than she intended. "I wasn't sure if I could pull it off, but I did." Adrian nodded, his sharp gaze focused on the road ahead. "You did, and you made it look effortless." He paused, and for the first time, Lily caught a flicker of something, respect, maybe, or even admiration, in his eyes. It made her stomach tighten in a way she hadn't expected. You handled that question with poise, he added, his voice steady but tinged with a hint of surprise. I didn't expect you to be so open about it. Lily shifted in her seat, trying to find the right words. I didn't think lying would help. People can tell when you're not being truthful, and I don't know. I figured honesty was the best way to go. Adrian looked at her, studying her closely. That's one of the things I like about you, Lily, he said quietly. You're not afraid to be yourself. His words hung in the air between them, and Lily felt a warmth spread through her chest, unexpected and unsettling. Why did that feel like more than just a compliment? I didn't think I'd end up here, Lily confessed, her voice barely a whisper. This life. I mean, I've never been to a place like that. I didn't know how to behave, what to say. I was out of my depth. Adrian turned to her, a slight smile on his lips. You did just fine, he reassured her. No one suspected a thing. You fit in perfectly. She shook her head, still feeling the weight of her insecurities. It was all fake. I'm just playing a part. Adrian's smile faded slightly, and for a moment, there was a depth in his expression she hadn't seen before. It's not fake, Lily. You're doing this for a reason. And that reason is to help your family, right? Lily nodded, her throat tight. Yeah, I don't have a choice. Adrian's eyes softened for a brief second before he turned his gaze back to the road. I understand, he said simply. The rest of the ride passed in a comfortable silence, neither of them speaking as the car sped through the streets, heading back to the apartment that Lily had only just begun to call home. The city skyline loomed in the distance, and as they neared the building, Lily felt a strange mix of exhaustion and unease settle over her. She had played her part, but she couldn't help but wonder, how long could she keep up the act? As they entered the building, Adrian led her through the grand lobby, his presence still commanding the attention of everyone around them. Lily felt small in comparison, the weight of the day sinking into her shoulders. They reached the elevator, and Adrian pressed the button for the top floor. I'll have the documents for the next stage of the agreement sent to your apartment tomorrow, he said as the doors closed. We're moving quickly. The deal has to be finalized within the next 2 weeks. Lily nodded, feeling the pressure settle back onto her chest. 2 weeks. That was all the time she had before everything would change. As they reached the penthouse floor, Adrian turned to her. You did well tonight, Lily, he repeated. Keep this up, and you won't just have financial security. You'll have a life that's better than anything you've ever imagined. Lily tried to force a smile, but it felt hollow. I just want to make sure my family's okay. Adrian gave her a small nod. And you will. You're doing the right thing. As the elevator doors opened, the penthouse stretched out before her, sleek, modern, luxurious in a way she had never imagined. Everything in her life had been so small, so fragile. But now, standing in this opulent space, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was just another pawn in a game she didn't understand. Adrian led her into the living room, and as she looked out at the stunning view of the city, she felt a pang of guilt. She had been given so much more than she had ever dreamed of, and yet, it didn't feel like hers to keep. Good night, Lily, Adrian said, his voice softening slightly as he paused at the doorway. Get some rest. Tomorrow's another big day. She nodded, her thoughts swirling in a mix of confusion and anticipation. As Adrian left, closing the door softly behind him, Lily stood there for a moment, staring out the window at the lights below. It felt surreal, this life she had stepped into. But was it really hers? Or was it just another mask she would wear to survive? Ivy had been right about one thing. Lily was adjusting quickly to her new life. It wasn't just the gowns or the fancy events, but the way she carried herself. Every time she stepped into a room now, she did it with more confidence, more grace, even if it was all an act. Adrian had kept his word. Lily's family's debts were being paid off, and the steady paycheck was slowly, but surely, bringing peace to her mother's troubled health and her younger brother's future. But as the days passed, a strange feeling began to creep into her. The more she lived this life, the more she felt detached from it, like she was an observer, someone just playing a part and not fully part of the world around her. Her feelings for Adrian had shifted too, but not in the way she had expected. She thought she'd remain indifferent to him, that this would be nothing more than a business arrangement. But his quiet gestures, like holding the door open for her, offering a cup of coffee when he saw her tired, his unspoken support in the smallest of moments, had begun to make her question her own boundaries. He wasn't just the man she was pretending to be engaged to. He was kind, in his own way, and that scared her. As she sat in the penthouse one morning, sipping on the coffee Adrian had brought her, the weight of their arrangement hung in the air between them. He was busy with work, as usual, but there was a tension between them, unspoken but thick, like they were both too aware of the role they were playing. Adrian walked over to his desk, his usual focused demeanor never wavering. "I'm meeting with the investors today," he said, not looking at her. "We need to discuss the final details for the deal. There's only one more week to go." Lily nodded, feeling the familiar knot of anxiety in her stomach. One more week. That was it. After that, everything would be settled, and the two of them would return to their separate lives. It should have been a relief, but instead, it felt like a looming deadline. "I'll be at the charity event tonight," Adrian continued. "I need you to attend with me. It'll be good for the final presentation." Lily's heart skipped a beat. Another event. Another night of pretending. "Of course," she replied, her voice a little too steady for her liking. Adrian turned his head, his eyes locking onto hers for a moment, his gaze intense. "Lily," he said, his voice softer, as if choosing his words carefully. "You're doing great. I know this is all unusual for you, but I want you to know that it's more than just a deal to me." Lily's breath caught in her throat. She didn't know how to respond. Was this a compliment? Or was he just trying to reassure her, as he always did? "I know it's hard," he added, almost too quietly, "but you're not alone in this." Her mind was racing. This wasn't the same Adrian who had hired her to play a part, was it? There was something more in his words, a sincerity that she hadn't expected. But how could she trust it? She was a janitor, after all, and he was the CEO of one of the biggest companies in the city. The gulf between their worlds was vast, and no matter how much he tried to bridge it, she could never truly be a part of his life. She had to keep reminding herself of that. "I'll do my best," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Adrian gave a nod, his expression unreadable. "I know you will," he replied, his tone firm, reassuring. He then turned back to his desk, and Lily felt the weight of the conversation drop, leaving her with a sense of unease she couldn't shake. As she got ready for the charity event later that evening, she wondered how much longer she could keep up the act. The lines between what was real and what was fake were beginning to blur, and she didn't know how to stop it. The night of the charity event arrived quickly. Once again, Lily stood in front of the full-length mirror, dressed in a sleek, navy blue gown that hugged her body perfectly. She barely recognized herself. The woman staring back was poised, confident, someone who belonged in the world of wealth and influence. But underneath it all, she still felt like the same girl who had swept floors in a cramped apartment complex. As Adrian drove them to the event, the city lights flickering outside the car window, Lily's thoughts drifted back to his words earlier that day. "You're not alone in this." Was he just saying that to make her feel better? Or did he mean it? When they arrived at the venue, a massive ballroom filled with the city's elite, Lily's nerves flared once again. The media was already there, cameras flashing as they made their way through the crowd. Adrian's hand rested lightly on her lower back, guiding her through the sea of people. She caught glimpses of familiar faces, investors, philanthropists, powerful figures, but no one paid them any attention as they moved through the room. It wasn't until they reached the front of the room that Lily felt the weight of the moment. The charity event was about to begin, and everyone's eyes were on Adrian and his fiancée. She smiled, did everything she was supposed to do, but deep down, she couldn't stop wondering what this was all for. Was it just to close a deal, or was there something more she wasn't seeing? As Adrian gave his opening speech, Lily watched him from the sidelines. There was something magnetic about him, something that made everyone around him listen, to take him seriously. She couldn't help but admire him. He wasn't just the man she was pretending to be engaged to. He was someone who commanded respect, who could change lives with a single decision. And that, more than anything, made her question her own. What was she doing here? And why did she feel like she was falling for him? Ivy's soft footsteps echoed in the hallway as she approached Lily, who was standing by the window of the penthouse, staring out at the city below. The lights of the skyline reflected in her eyes, but her thoughts seemed far away, lost in the whirlwind of her new life. Ivy cleared her throat softly, making Lily turn toward her. Mr. Blackwell has requested your presence in the conference room, Ivy said, her voice cool as always. It's important. Lily nodded, pushing the heavy weight of her thoughts aside. I'll be right there, she replied quietly, turning to head toward the door. Ivy gave a small nod and stepped back to allow Lily to pass. As Lily walked down the sleek hallway, her heart started to race. The gala had gone smoothly, but tonight, something in Adrian's voice, something in the way he had looked at her, lingered in her mind. He had spoken to her as though she were more than just a contract, more than just a deal to be fulfilled. But was that just a momentary lapse in his professional demeanor? Or was there more to it? Her head spun as she reached the conference room, the large wooden doors opening smoothly as she stepped inside. Adrian was sitting at the head of the long table, his gaze intense as he reviewed some papers. When he saw her, he set them aside, his eyes briefly softening. Lily, he said, his voice low but commanding. Sit down. We need to go over the final details. Lily hesitated for a moment before sitting across from him. Her mind was still preoccupied with the thought that Adrian's earlier words had meant more than just business. But there was no time for that now. She had a role to play. Of course, she replied, her voice steady, though her heart was thumping in her chest. Adrian handed her a folder filled with documents, his fingers brushing lightly against hers as he did so. This is the last stage of the deal. After this, you can take control of your own future. The contract will be finalized, and you can move on with your life, free from the debt that's been hanging over you. Lily nodded, trying to push away the strange feeling that had settled in her chest. She didn't have time to analyze her emotions, not now. She had a job to do. As Adrian outlined the final steps of their arrangement, Lily listened carefully, absorbing every word. The deal was almost done. In a week, everything would be finalized, and she would be free. Free to leave, to go back to her family, to never have to pretend again. But as Adrian spoke, her thoughts kept drifting back to the way he looked at her, the way his voice softened when he spoke to her. Was it just the pressure of the deal, or was there something else there? Adrian paused for a moment, his gaze fixed on her, as if sensing her distraction. Lily, he said, his tone more serious now. I want you to know that this has never been about using you. I've never treated you like a pawn, and I never will. You're not just a part of this business deal to me. You've done more than I ever expected, and I want you to know I appreciate it. Lily felt a lump form in her throat at his words. She had been so focused on the business side of things that she hadn't stopped to consider how Adrian might have been feeling. He had been kind to her, not just in words, but in actions too. And yet, she couldn't help but wonder if it was just his way of getting through this situation. I'm just doing what I can to help my family, Lily said quietly, trying to mask the emotions threatening to spill over. Adrian's gaze softened, and for the first time, she saw something different in his eyes. I know, he said, and I admire that more than you realize. But I don't want you to think you're alone in this. I've always had people helping me along the way, and now, I want to help you. The sincerity in his voice made her heart skip a beat. Could it be possible that Adrian felt something for her? Or was it just the pressure of their arrangement talking? Lily couldn't be sure, but one thing was certain. She was beginning to feel something she hadn't expected. Something real. Something that scared her. As they finished going over the details of the deal, Adrian stood up, signaling the end of their meeting. We'll finalize everything tomorrow, he said, a faint smile playing on his lips. Get some rest. It's been a long day. Lily stood up as well, trying to steady herself. She was overwhelmed by everything. The deal, her family, Adrian's unexpected kindness. She was just a janitor, a woman who had been thrown into a world she didn't belong in. And yet, here she was, standing on the precipice of something she couldn't quite define. Thank you, she said softly, her voice barely a whisper. Adrian nodded, his gaze lingering on her for a moment longer than necessary. You're welcome, Lily. You've earned it. As she left the conference room, her mind was a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions. Was she really ready for what was to come? Was she ready to leave this world behind and return to her family? Or was there something about Adrian, something about the life she had found herself living, that she couldn't walk away from? The question swirled in her mind as she walked down the hallway, but one thing was clear. Her life was about to change, and she wasn't sure if she was ready for it. Ivy's footsteps echoed softly down the hallway as she approached Lily, who was seated at the desk in the penthouse, staring at the stack of papers in front of her. It was the last day before everything would be finalized, and the reality of what was about to happen weighed heavily on Lily's mind. The deal that had started out as a business arrangement, a way to help her family, was now something more complicated, something she wasn't sure she was prepared for. Adrian had been kind to her, more than she had ever expected. His gestures, his words, everything about him seemed genuine. But could she trust it? Could she trust him? Ivy's voice interrupted her thoughts. "Mr. Blackwell would like to speak with you before the final meeting this afternoon," she said, her tone as composed as always. Lily nodded, trying to clear her mind. She had to focus. This was it. One more meeting, and the deal would be done. She had to make sure everything went smoothly. Adrian was already in the conference room when Lily arrived. He was standing by the window, his back to her, looking out at the sprawling city below. The moment he turned and saw her, something in his eyes shifted. There was a warmth there that made Lily's heart race, and for a split second, she forgot why she was here. "Lily," he said, his voice low and steady, but there was an underlying intensity there. "Come in." Lily stepped forward, her stomach in knots. She couldn't focus on her nerves now. She had to do this. "We're almost there," Adrian continued, his eyes never leaving hers. "In just a few hours, everything will be finalized. The deal will be done, and you'll have the security you've been working for." He paused, as if trying to find the right words. "And I'll be able to fulfill my end of the arrangement." His words hung in the air, and Lily felt a pang of doubt. Was she ready for this? She had spent so many sleepless nights thinking about what would happen once everything was over. Once the contract was signed, once her family's debts were paid, would she be able to walk away from this life and return to the one she had known? Or would she stay? "Lily," Adrian's voice broke through her thoughts, his tone softer now. "I want you to know that I've appreciated everything you've done. You've kept your word, and I respect that more than you know." His words, though kind, felt like a weight pressing down on her. This was more than just a business deal, more than just pretending to be engaged. She had started to feel something she couldn't ignore anymore. "I didn't expect it to be like this," Lily said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't expect to feel anything for you." The words felt out of place as soon as they left her mouth. Adrian's expression softened, and for a moment, there was no tension between them. There was no business arrangement, no deal. Just two people who had shared something real. He walked toward her, closing the space between them. "I know," he said, his voice low. "I didn't expect it either. But what we've built here, this arrangement, it's more than just business to me, Lily." Lily's breath caught in her throat. She had never seen him like this, so open, so vulnerable. He had always been the confident CEO, the man who seemed to have everything under control. But now, in this moment, he looked just like her. Unsure, uncertain, and perhaps a little afraid. "What happens after the deal is done?" Lily asked, her voice barely audible. Adrian's gaze flickered to the city below, then back to her. "That's up to you," he said quietly. "Once everything is finalized, you'll be free to go, but I hope you'll stay." His words hung in the air between them, and for a moment, neither of them spoke. Lily felt the weight of his gaze, the intensity of his words, and she couldn't help but wonder if they were both on the verge of something neither of them could walk away from. "I never thought this would happen," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "I never thought I'd be here, doing this, feeling like this." Adrian stepped closer, his hand resting gently on hers. "Neither did I," he said, his voice low, almost a whisper. "But I don't want this to end." The words struck Lily like a lightning bolt, and for a moment, she couldn't breathe. What was happening? She had come here for one thing, security, a way out of her old life. But now, she was standing on the edge of something far more complicated, something she wasn't sure she could walk away from. Adrian was still watching her, his gaze unwavering. "I'm not asking for anything, Lily," he said. "But I think we both know there's more to this than just a contract." Lily's heart pounded in her chest, her thoughts racing. Could she trust him? Could she let herself feel for him the way she was starting to? She didn't have all the answers, but she knew one thing. Everything had changed. "I don't know what to do," she whispered, her voice breaking slightly. Adrian smiled softly, his thumb brushing against the back of her hand. "You don't have to know right now," he said gently. "Just take it one step at a time. We'll figure it out together." Lily looked at him, her heart swelling with emotions she couldn't name, And for the first time since she'd met him, she allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, she wasn't alone in this anymore. Ivy's knock on the door was soft, but it brought Lily back to reality. She looked up from the papers on the table, her mind still heavy with the conversation she had just had with Adrian. For a moment, it felt as though the world outside the penthouse had stopped, leaving only the two of them in a space filled with unspoken emotions. "Mr. Blackwell is waiting for you downstairs," Ivy said, her tone as calm and professional as always. Lily took a deep breath, her heart still racing from the vulnerability Adrian had shown her. "Thank you," Lily said, her voice steadier than she felt. She rose from her chair, straightening her dress before following Ivy out of the room. The elevator ride down was quiet, each floor passing by, with a soft ping, as if the world itself was holding its breath. When the doors opened, Adrian stood waiting for her, as composed as ever, his expression unreadable. "Lily," he said, his voice as calm as always. But there was something in the way he said her name that made her stomach flip. "We're almost there. Just one more meeting, and everything will be finalized." Lily nodded, trying to push away the uncertainty that had been building inside her. "I know," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's just, this whole thing is a lot more complicated than I thought." Adrian met her gaze, his eyes softening for a brief moment. "I understand, but you've handled it better than anyone could have expected. You've done more than fulfill your part of the agreement. You've earned more than just financial security, Lily." His words lingered in the air, and for a moment, Lily couldn't speak. She had spent so long pretending, so long burying her true feelings, that she wasn't sure how to respond. But Adrian wasn't done. "I know this isn't easy for you," he said, stepping closer. "I don't expect you to just walk away and forget everything. I know what you've sacrificed. But when this is over, I want you to know that you don't have to be alone." Lily's heart pounded in her chest as she looked up at him. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice shaking slightly. Adrian's expression softened further, and for a moment, it was as if the business arrangement no longer mattered. "I don't want this to just end," he said quietly. "Not like this. I've come to care about you, Lily. And I know that's not what you signed up for, but I want you to know that if you ever want something more, I'll be here." His words left Lily speechless. Was he really saying what she thought he was saying? She had always told herself that this was just a temporary arrangement, that it would end when the deal was done. But now, standing here in front of Adrian, the man who had offered her everything, she realized that she didn't want it to end either. She wasn't ready to walk away from this, not yet. I don't know what to say," she whispered, her voice trembling. Adrian reached out, gently cupping her chin. In his hand, lifting her gaze to meet his. "You don't have to say anything," he said softly. "Just think about it. Once everything is finalized, we can take our time. There's no rush. But know that I'm serious about this." The sincerity in his eyes made her chest tighten. Lily had never felt so exposed, so vulnerable, but at the same time, she couldn't deny the way her heart raced when he was near, the way her thoughts seemed to drift toward him when they weren't together. This wasn't part of the deal, and yet it felt real, more real than anything she had ever known. "I need time," she said quietly, not sure if she was talking to him or to herself. "I can't just jump into something like this." Adrian's smile was soft, understanding. "Take all the time you need, Lily. I'll be here, waiting." The sound of footsteps outside the door broke the silence between them, and Adrian pulled his hand away from her chin, though the warmth from his touch lingered. "We should get going," he said, his voice returning to its usual professional tone. "We have a meeting to attend to." Lily nodded, though her mind was still racing. She followed Adrian out of the penthouse, her thoughts swirling with everything he had said. As they entered the sleek elevator, she tried to gather her composure, but the weight of his words kept pressing down on her. What was happening? Was this just a temporary feeling, or was she beginning to care about him in a way that went beyond the arrangement they had made? As the elevator descended, Lily looked at Adrian, his back straight, his face calm and unreadable. But she saw the flicker in his eyes, the way he glanced at her when he thought she wasn't looking. Could it be possible that he felt the same way? Or was she just imagining it, caught up in the emotions of the moment? The elevator doors opened with a soft chime, and they stepped into the lobby. Lily followed Adrian through the bustling crowd of employees and clients, her heart pounding in her chest. The final meeting was about to begin. But for the first time in a long time, she wasn't sure if she was ready for what came next. Ivy was right there, as always, guiding Lily through the final preparations for the meeting. The soft click of her heels echoed in the hallway, as though marking time itself, and Lily could feel her nerves begin to fray again. One more day, one more meeting, and then everything would be over. The deal would be finalized, her family's debts would be paid, and she would walk away from this life and return to what she once knew, or so she thought. As they stepped into the conference room, Adrian was already seated, looking as composed as ever. His eyes flicked up from the papers on the table, meeting Lily's gaze for just a moment before he gave her a slight nod. She felt the weight of the situation press down on her, but there was something different in his eyes today, a depth she hadn't seen before. "Lily," he said, his voice calm, but with an underlying edge. "It's time. Let's finish this." She nodded, her throat tight. "Of course," she whispered, walking to the chair across from him. As she sat down, Adrian handed her a fresh set of documents, the final papers of their arrangement. Everything was in place. Everything was ready. And yet, Lily felt a flicker of doubt creeping into her heart. Was she ready for this? Was she ready to walk away from all of this, from Adrian, from the life she had started to build in this world of wealth and influence? Adrian cleared his throat, breaking her reverie. "We'll need to sign these papers. Once you do, everything will be official," he said. His tone was professional, but there was something in the way he spoke that made Lily pause. He wasn't just talking about the deal. He wasn't just talking about the contract anymore. She felt it, the shift in the air between them. "I'm ready," Lily said, though the words didn't feel like her own. She picked up the pen, her fingers trembling ever so slightly, and began to sign her name on the dotted line. As she finished the last stroke, she glanced up at Adrian. His eyes were fixed on her, and for a moment, it felt as though the world outside the conference room had faded away, leaving only the two of them in the silence. "It's done," he said softly, leaning back in his chair. "You're free now, Lily." Free. The word hung in the air, but it didn't feel like freedom. It didn't feel like the relief she had imagined for so long. Instead, it felt like something was missing. "I know," Lily said, her voice barely above a whisper. She felt a strange emptiness inside, something she hadn't anticipated. She had been so focused on getting to this point, so consumed by the idea of securing her family's future, that she hadn't considered what it would feel like to let go of everything she had built in this world. "Are you sure this is what you want?" Adrian asked, his voice low, his gaze steady as he looked at her. Lily's heart skipped a beat. I don't know anymore," she admitted, her voice trembling. She had spent so long pretending, so long following the script they had written for her. But now, after everything that had happened, after everything Adrian had done for her, it didn't feel like she was just playing a role anymore. It felt real, and that scared her. "I never expected this," she continued, her words coming out in a rush. "I thought I was just helping my family, doing what I had to do to get by. But now, it feels like I've lost something. Something important." Adrian didn't say anything at first. He just watched her, his expression unreadable, as though waiting for her to find the words she needed. Finally, he spoke, his voice soft, almost gentle. "You haven't lost anything, Lily," he said, his eyes softening. "You've gained everything. You've built something here. And I'm not just talking about the deal or the security. I'm talking about who you are, the person you've become. That's real." His words hit her harder than she expected. She had been so focused on the idea of what she needed to do, of what she had to accomplish, that she hadn't stopped to consider the person she was becoming in the process. "I don't know if I can walk away from this," she said, her voice barely a whisper. Adrian leaned forward, his eyes intense. "You don't have to walk away, Lily," he said, his voice firm, but not harsh. "I want you to stay. Not because of the deal, not because of the contract, but because I care about you. I've cared about you for a long time, and I think you felt it too." Lily's breath caught in her throat, and for a moment, she was frozen. She had never expected this. She had never expected to hear these words from him, and yet, now that they were out in the open, she couldn't deny what she was feeling. "Adrian," she whispered, her voice shaky. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything right now," he replied softly. "Just know that I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The weight of the words hung between them, and Lily felt as though the world had shifted again. But this time, it felt different. It felt like she was standing on the edge of something real, something she hadn't known she needed. She hadn't known it was possible. But maybe, just maybe it was. As she looked at Adrian, she realized that everything had changed. She wasn't just a woman playing a part anymore. She was a woman who had something real to hold on to, something that might be worth more than anything she had ever imagined. Ivy's quiet voice interrupted the moment between Lily and Adrian, her presence always so perfectly timed, as if she knew when to step in and when to retreat. "The meeting is about to start, Mr. Blackwell," she said, her tone polite but firm. Adrian blinked, his gaze still fixed on Lily for a beat longer than necessary, before he straightened and nodded. "Thank you, Ivy," he said, his voice returning to its usual professional edge. Turning back to Lily, he gave her a small, reassuring smile. "We'll continue this conversation later. Right now, we need to wrap up the deal." Lily nodded, her heart still racing, but she knew this was part of the process. The deal had to be finalized today, and the questions swirling in her mind would have to wait. She followed Adrian into the conference room, where the final steps of the deal awaited them. As they walked, the tension between them hung thick in the air, unspoken but undeniable. The deal was almost done, and yet, with every passing moment, the weight of their personal connection grew heavier. They entered the conference room, where several high-powered investors and lawyers were already gathered. Everyone stood when they entered, offering polite nods, but it was clear they were here for the business, not the drama of a fake engagement. Adrian took his seat at the head of the table, and Lily sat beside him, trying to calm her nerves. The papers in front of them were the final ones. Everything had been negotiated, discussed, and agreed upon. All that was left was the signature. Lily couldn't help but feel a sense of finality, as though signing those papers would be the end of something, but also the beginning of something else. Adrian glanced at her, his eyes flicking between the papers and her face, and for a moment, she saw something in his eyes she hadn't expected, something more than business. He cleared his throat. "This is it," he said, his voice steady. "Once we sign these, the deal is closed, and we can all move forward." The weight of his words hung in the air, and Lily felt her stomach twist. Everything had led to this point. Her family's future, her own future, all tied to the outcome of this meeting. She felt the eyes of the room on her as she picked up the pen, her hand shaking just slightly as she signed her name on the dotted line. It felt like a formality, something she had to do, but as the ink dried on the paper, she couldn't shake the feeling that something had just changed, something that couldn't be undone. As Adrian signed his name next to hers, the room exhaled, a collective sigh of relief that the deal was finally done. "Congratulations," one of the investors said, offering a handshake to Adrian and then to Lily. "This has been a remarkable transaction. I'm sure this will be beneficial for everyone involved." Lily smiled, but the smile didn't quite reach her eyes. She wasn't sure if it was the deal that had been beneficial or the change it had made in her life, the way it had altered everything she thought she knew. As the meeting ended and the investors filtered out of the room, Lily remained at the table with Adrian. The weight of the silence between them felt heavier than ever before. He was still focused on the papers in front of him, but his mind, she suspected, was elsewhere. She finally broke the silence. "It's done," she said quietly, her voice filled with a mix of relief and uncertainty. "It's really done." Adrian looked up, his expression unreadable. "Yes, it is," he replied softly. "And now, we move forward." Lily nodded, but she couldn't shake the feeling that moving forward didn't mean the same thing for both of them. She had come into this arrangement with a clear goal, to help her family, to secure her future, but somewhere along the way, she had begun to lose sight of that goal. She had begun to care about more than just the contract. And now, standing here with Adrian, she didn't know what came next. "Adrian," she began, her voice trembling slightly. "I need to ask you something." Adrian raised an eyebrow, his expression softening. "What is it?" Lily hesitated, unsure of how to frame her question. "What happens now?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Now that the deal is done, what happens to us?" The question hung in the air, and for the first time since she had met him, Adrian seemed uncertain. His eyes searched hers, as though looking for an answer that wasn't there. He exhaled slowly. "What do you want to happen?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. Lily swallowed hard. She didn't know. She had never expected this, Never expected to find herself standing at the edge of something real, something she wasn't sure she was ready for. But here she was, caught between the world she had created and the world she had hoped to escape. She took a deep breath. "I don't know," she said honestly, "but I think I need to figure it out." Adrian's expression softened, and for a moment, it was as though the world had slowed down. "You don't have to figure it out alone," he said, his voice steady and sincere. "I'll be here, no matter what you decide." The words felt like a promise that made her heart ache with longing and uncertainty. Could she trust him? Could she trust herself? She didn't know the answers yet, but she knew one thing for sure: everything had changed. And for the first time in a long time, she wasn't sure where the path would lead, but she was willing to find out. Ivy had been watching the exchange from the doorway, her presence silent yet undeniable. It was only when Adrian turned to speak to her that Lily realized the weight of the silence that had settled between them. "I'll see you in the morning, Lily," Adrian said, his voice steady, but the lingering softness in his eyes gave away the vulnerability that had slipped into his usually composed demeanor. Lily nodded, a tight smile playing at the corners of her lips, but inside, her emotions were far from settled. She had entered this arrangement with a clear purpose: to help her family, to secure a future she could never have dreamed of before. But now, after everything, after the late-night talks, the glances that seemed to linger just a bit too long, and the quiet understanding that had begun to form between them, she found herself at a crossroads. Was this still just a business arrangement, or had it become something else? As Adrian stepped away, disappearing into his office to prepare for the next stage of the deal, Lily remained in the conference room, her thoughts swirling. Everything had led up to this moment, but now, the end of the deal didn't feel like the beginning of her freedom. It felt like a door closing on something much more complicated. She wandered to the large windows of the penthouse, looking out at the city below, the vastness of it all making her feel small and insignificant. For the first time in weeks, she allowed herself to breathe, to acknowledge the mix of feelings that had been building up inside her. She had been pretending for so long, pretending to be someone she wasn't, pretending that this life, this world of wealth and business, wasn't something she could belong to. But now, after everything, she wasn't sure who she was anymore. The woman who had stepped into this world was confident, determined, someone who knew exactly what she wanted. But the woman standing here now, staring out at the city with a heavy heart, was unsure. She didn't know where to go next, what to do next, or if she even had a choice anymore. It wasn't just the deal that had changed her. It was Adrian, his quiet kindness, his unspoken understanding, and, most of all, the way he had made her feel like she mattered, even in a world that seemed so far removed from her own. Lily turned away from the window, feeling the weight of the decision pressing on her. She had a choice, or so she thought. But the truth was, she didn't know if she was ready to walk away from what had begun to feel like a real connection. She had spent so many years fighting for a future that would give her family the life they deserved. But what about her? What about what she wanted? As she moved toward the door, ready to step into the unknown, Ivy's voice once again stopped her in her tracks. "Miss Hart," she said, her voice cool and professional, but with a hint of something more. "Mr. Blackwell would like to speak with you." Lily felt her pulse quicken. She had expected this conversation to be over, but something in Adrian's tone the night before had suggested otherwise. "Of course," Lily replied, her voice a little steadier than she felt. She followed Ivy down the hallway, her footsteps slow but steady, her heart racing with the anticipation of what was to come. As they entered Adrian's office, he was standing by the window, his back to her as he looked out over the city. There was something about the way he held himself, something that made him seem both distant and close at the same time. "Lily," he said, his voice calm, but with an edge of something else. He turned to face her, his eyes searching hers for something, as if he was waiting for her to say something. "I've been thinking," he began, his voice low, steady, as though weighing every word before it left his mouth. "I know the deal is done, and you're free to go, but I want you to know that I don't want you to leave. Not just because of the deal, but because he stopped himself, as if realizing he had said too much. For a moment, there was silence, and Lily felt the tension between them grow thicker, the weight of his words settling in the space between them. She had never seen Adrian like this, vulnerable, uncertain, human. It wasn't just the businessman she had come to know, but a man who was grappling with something she couldn't quite understand. "Adrian," she said, her voice quiet, almost a whisper. "I don't know what you want from me." His gaze softened, and he stepped closer, his presence filling the room in a way that made Lily's heart skip a beat. "I want you," he said simply, the words hanging in the air like a confession. Lily froze, her mind racing to catch up with the reality of what he had just said. "I want you, not just for the deal, not for any business reason," he continued, his voice thick with emotion. "I care about you, Lily, more than I ever thought possible." The confession hung in the air between them, and Lily's breath caught in her throat. She had never expected this, never imagined that Adrian Blackwell, the man who had hired her to pretend to be his fiancé, would say something like this. Her heart hammered in her chest, torn between the life she had known, the world she had been trying to escape, and the new life that Adrian was offering her, one that was filled with uncertainty but also a sense of possibility. "I don't know what to say," Lily whispered, her voice trembling. Adrian stepped closer, his hand brushing against hers. "You don't have to say anything," he replied softly. "Just know that I'm here. And I'm not asking for anything from you. I just want you to stay. I want us to figure this out together." Lily stood frozen, her mind a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions. She had always been so focused on her family's future, on securing their well-being, that she had never considered her own. But now, standing here with Adrian, feeling the heat of his touch, she realized that maybe, just maybe, she had the right to think about her own future too. The question remained, could she trust him? Could she trust herself? She didn't know the answer, but for the first time in a long time, she wasn't sure she needed to. All she knew was that her life had changed in ways she couldn't yet understand, and that maybe, just maybe, she could take a step forward with Adrian by her side. Ivy's voice echoed down the hallway again, snapping Lily out of her thoughts. "Mr. Blackwell is expecting you," she said, standing by the door, her eyes flicking between the two of them. Adrian turned his gaze to her for a moment before nodding. He stepped back, creating some space between them, and for the first time, Lily noticed just how much distance had grown between them over the past few days. It wasn't the physical distance, but the emotional one. Her heart ached at the realization that things between her and Adrian had changed. They had crossed a line, and now they were standing on the edge of something neither of them was prepared for. She turned to Adrian, searching his eyes for some sort of reassurance, but all she found was uncertainty. "I'll be right there," she said, giving him a small smile before heading toward the door. She needed time to think, to process everything that had happened between them. She needed clarity. Walking down the long corridor, Lily's mind raced. The weight of the decision ahead of her felt overwhelming. She had promised herself that once the deal was signed, once her family was taken care of, she would leave this life behind, return to what was familiar, what was safe. But now, she wasn't so sure. Adrian had given her more than she expected. He had shown her kindness when she least expected it, made her feel like more than just a business arrangement. But was it enough to build something real? Was she ready to open herself up to that possibility? She reached the door to the conference room and paused for a moment, her hand hovering over the handle. She didn't know what she would find inside, but she had to face whatever was coming. Taking a deep breath, she opened the door. Adrian was standing by the table, a few papers in front of him. He looked up when she entered, his expression softening as his eyes met hers. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The air between them was thick with unspoken words, and Lily could feel the tension, the weight of everything that had transpired. "You're here," Adrian said finally, breaking the silence. His voice was quieter than usual, more vulnerable. "I wasn't sure if you would come." Lily swallowed hard. "I had to," she replied, her voice steadier than she felt. She walked into the room, her steps slow and deliberate, and took a seat across from him. The silence stretched between them, each of them waiting for the other to speak, but neither of them knew where to begin. Finally, Adrian spoke, his voice low. "I know this hasn't been easy," he said. "For either of us." Lily looked up, meeting his gaze. There was sincerity in his eyes, something more than just the businessman she had come to know. "I didn't expect any of this," she said softly. "I thought it was just a deal. I thought I was just helping my family, getting them out of debt. I didn't expect to feel like this." Adrian's gaze softened. "I know. I didn't expect it either. But now here we are." He paused, the weight of his next words hanging in the air. I care about you, Lily. More than I ever thought possible. Lily's heart raced in her chest. His words were unexpected, raw, and sincere. She didn't know what to say. Her mind was a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions, and she wasn't sure she could trust any of them. Could she trust him? Could she trust herself? Adrian, she began, her voice trembling slightly. I don't know what this means. I don't know what we're doing here. Adrian reached across the table, his hand gently resting over hers. I don't know either, he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. But I know that I don't want to let go of this. Of you. The words hung in the air, thick with meaning, and Lily felt the walls she had built around herself begin to crack. She had spent so long keeping herself distant, telling herself that she could walk away from all of this, that it was just a deal, just business. But now, the idea of walking away felt impossible. She had grown to care about him, and maybe, just maybe, he felt the same way. I'm scared, she whispered, her voice breaking. I don't know if I can trust you. Adrian's thumb brushed against her hand, the touch soft and reassuring. I understand. You don't have to trust me completely right now. I just want you to know that I'm here. I want to be here with you, through this, whatever it becomes. Lily closed her eyes, letting his words wash over her. The decision was no longer just about the deal. It wasn't just about her family's future. It was about her future, her choice, and the path she was willing to walk with Adrian. She had never imagined herself here, in this moment, caught between the life she knew and the life she could have. What happens now? She asked, her voice barely audible. Adrian stood up and walked to the window, turning to face her as he spoke. Now we figure it out. Together. Lily stood, moving toward him. For the first time in a long time, she didn't feel like she was alone. She didn't have all the answers, but she knew she didn't have to face this alone anymore. Adrian was right. They would figure it out together. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. Ivy had left them alone, sensing that the final words were yet to be spoken, leaving Lily and Adrian standing together in the middle of the sleek penthouse with nothing but the quiet hum of the city outside to fill the space between them. The weight of the moment seemed almost unbearable, the emotions in the room swirling like a storm. Adrian turned to face Lily, his eyes searching hers, waiting for her to say something, to decide what came next. But Lily wasn't sure what to say. Everything had changed in the past few days, and it wasn't just the deal, the success, or even her family's newfound security. It was something deeper, something unspoken. It was the way Adrian had looked at her, the way his presence had made her feel seen for the first time in years. It was how, when he touched her, it wasn't just a gesture of comfort. It was a promise. She had never imagined herself here, standing at this crossroads. She had never imagined that a deal could lead to something like this, could make her question everything she thought she knew about herself, her future, and what truly mattered. She looked at Adrian, her heart pounding in her chest, and for a moment, she didn't know if she could speak the words that had been building inside her. But then, his voice broke the silence. Lily, he said, his voice soft but steady. Whatever you decide, I want you to know that I'm here. I won't push you. I just want you to know that this, whatever this is between us, it's real to me. She swallowed hard, her throat tight with emotion. His words were simple, but they carried a weight that made her feel like everything had shifted. I never thought I'd find this, she said quietly, her voice trembling slightly. I thought I was just helping my family. I thought that was all that mattered. Adrian took a step closer to her, his eyes full of understanding. I know. I've seen what you've sacrificed. But you deserve more than that, Lily. You deserve to have a life for yourself, too. Her breath caught in her throat. She had been so focused on her family, on taking care of them, that she had forgotten what it felt like to live for herself, to have dreams and desires beyond survival. And now, standing here with Adrian, she realized that maybe, just maybe, she could have something more. She could have a life that wasn't defined by duty alone. I don't know if I'm ready for this, she whispered, her voice barely audible. Adrian reached out, his hand gently resting on her arm. You don't have to be ready right now, he said softly. Take your time. I'll be here, no matter what you decide. His words were exactly what she needed to hear. They weren't demanding, they weren't pushing her. They were simply an invitation to explore what could be, at her own pace, in her own time. And for the first time in a long time, Lily felt the pressure of her decisions lift just a little. She wasn't alone in this anymore. She didn't have to carry the weight of the world on her shoulders alone. She could make the decision that was right for her, without worrying about what everyone else expected. She could choose her own future. For a moment, Lily simply stood there, her heart racing in her chest, trying to gather her thoughts. The weight of everything that had happened, the deal, the family's relief, her own growing feelings for Adrian, was still heavy on her, but it didn't feel like an impossible burden anymore. "Adrian," she said, her voice steadier now. I think I'm ready to see what this could be. What we could be." Adrian's eyes lit up with a warmth that made her heart skip a beat. He stepped closer to her, his hand gently cupping her cheek, his touch tender but full of promise. "Are you sure?" he asked, his voice soft but with a strength behind it. "You don't have to rush." She shook her head, a small smile breaking through the uncertainty. "I'm sure," she said. "For the first time, I'm sure." Adrian smiled, his fingers brushing her cheek softly as he leaned in, his forehead resting against hers. "Then let's take this one step at a time," he whispered. And in that moment, Lily realized that the future wasn't as uncertain as it had seemed. It wasn't about the deal anymore. It was about choosing a path that felt right. About finding love and connection in the most unexpected places. As Adrian kissed her gently, Lily felt the weight of the world lift off her shoulders. For the first time, she was free to be herself, to live for herself, to embrace a future that was hers to choose. It wasn't just a business deal anymore. It was a chance at something real. And for the first time, Lily felt truly at peace with the choices she had made, knowing that whatever came next, she wouldn't have to face it alone.